With Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3 finally gracing our screens, we are of course greeted with a new opening. Makes sense. However, this OP is one of the most experimental and visually avant-garde OPs I've ever seen. To be honest, it very much reminds me of Devilman Crybaby's OP. I say this because of how both of them show you very heavily stylized, almost coded images, and without the added knowledge and context of what happens in the story, you won't know what these images mean or what you're looking at, which I think is great. I hate it when anime OPs straight up spoil stuff in the story, so seeing an opening here where a lot of the plot is shown to the audience without them even knowing and being able to tell what is even happening is great. However, with that being said, there is still plenty of much less experimental and cool looking visuals. So let's go through Jujutsu Kaisen's latest opening, Aizo, and we will break down its visuals, what is being referenced here, obvious spoilers for this season and possible spoilers for later on in season 4, as I will be discussing the story pretty much in its entirety to explain what the hell is going on here, as it is pretty heavily packed with visual motifs, so this might be a bit of a yap fest, so I'm going to talk relatively fast, and also I'll be using screenshots as my channel would immediately be taken down if I just started playing the OP, and also like, comment, subscribe. But with that being said, let's get into the analysis. The OP starts with Yuji walking down the road, similar to how he does at the start of the execution section before the fight with Yuta. A large eclipse, or seemingly something similar, in the distance that turns into an eye. I will say a lot of the visuals here are pretty difficult to make sense of, so let me know your interpretations down below. But the way I read the shot is to call back to Kenjaku and his cursed realm when he takes Yuji's friends to safety. It seems like that's also the case, as the eye that forms in this black circle is very reminiscent of Kenjaku and slash Geto, and we'll see more of this later. But this is then followed by a huge explosion in the city, which is then met with Yuta appearing from it. He charges down a building, followed by Yuji appearing, going up the building. The colour palette changes when the two characters switch who's on screen. Nothing really being referenced here beyond the fight between Yuji and Yuta. Also the anime version, because in the manga they don't really fight around skyscrapers or anything, it's more of an anime only thing. The next image is really weird and goofy, I'm not gonna lie, and I've looked around, I've scrolled through Twitter, I've asked friends who would also make videos, and I have no idea what this means. I'll try and make an analysis, but we see Choso jumping in frame from off screen, then floating in the centre of the room as he spins, almost spin dashing in the air. My interpretation is that this is of course some sort of reference to him staying behind in Tengen's realm, as it looks similar to the parts of Tengen's realm that we see in the conversation with Yuki later on. And the spinning, as well as the large orb of light above Choso, may also be a strange reference to Yuki's ability, because it looks planetary, maybe something to do with Yuki making a black hole, I don't know. Yes, I know it's just a lampshade above him, pretty much, but I'm not gonna lie, out of all the insane visuals here, they're usually referencing something, and it's, you know, you can just look up the image and you'll find out what it's referencing. Here, I'm confused. I asked so many other people, and I asked Ryan, he said Sonic. So I don't know. I have very little to say about this beyond it representing some relation between him, Tengen, and Yuki, more than likely. Even then, I don't know. I don't know. But after that shot, we get a smooth transition into one of Megumi's most hype fights in the series. He jumps away from the camera as he pops his domain. We can tell that he's popping domain due to the shape of the bones and stuff behind him, which, you know, we see in his fight with Reggie. Granted, we didn't see him use domain whilst jumping backwards in the fight with Reggie, but this is a really cool visual, so I don't really care. We then see a shot of Maki, almost mid-burning to Jogo. We can tell it's, you know, pre-burning, as she still has her ponytail here, and still has her purple glasses. The shot itself being very reminiscent of the Maharaga fight, which is pretty cool. But the next scene is also really cool. I really like this shot when I first saw it. So we see Megumi on his own, slowly getting up. The shot pulls back, and it's almost like, not to sound insulting, but like a PowerPoint. It's just a cut of a still shot. And each time the camera pulls away from Megumi, a new symbol appears behind him. Now, when you first see them, you might not be able to tell what these symbols are until the last one. Maybe they're symbols for the clans or whatever. No, but then you see the last one and you realize it's Maharaga's wheel, meaning all the previous symbols are that of the 10 shadows that we see Megumi use. And all of that is topped off with the visual motif of the bright red color palette that they've been pushing for this season since it was announced ages ago, which I think is really cool. And this shot ends with Megumi completely on his own in the center of the frame, surrounded by Maharaga's wheel. This is such a great visual. I love this. And following this, we get some high octane visuals. Look, we get Panda doing a roly-poly into frame. which is pretty epic. This could be referencing one of two things, Panda's backstory with Yaga, which would make sense, or his flashback that we see during the Kashimo fight. Overall, it fits much more with the Yaga Kusakabe flashback, as we see much more of that in the OP. And on top of that, in the Kashimo stuff, Panda is wearing like claws, and the visuals are a lot different. And it makes even more sense when you realize that this Panda roly-poly, the shot that accompanies it, is Yaga. More specifically, it's Yaga in the middle of the street, lit only by street lights, and this is of course a reference to Yaga's death at the hands of Gakuganji, which is a really cool shot. After this we see a traditional old school Japanese tapestry of Maki post air fryer wielding the soul split katana. Now this visual motif is this art style is very similar to that of a lot of the JJK Zero stuff you would see when it would show Yuta in a similar light. And this makes sense as we see Yuta in the same style in the next shot, crashing down, Rika having a second sword in her hand, maybe referencing his curse technique or his domain, but the pose he is in is similar to what we see just after Shibuya, him crashing down, or his appearance in front of Yuji and Choso, but Rika isn't there, so I don't think it's that. I'm pretty sure these specific pieces though are a reference to like an actual art piece. Please feel free to tell me down below. But we then get another shot of Maki, however it appears to be the not on fire version of what we just saw previously. I'll put them side by side here. In this one, she appears almost as if she's on top of a building in Shibuya, pre-Jogo and Sukuna fight. It's just nice and pretty up there, and she's just dancing a bit. But the shot quickly transitions into Yuji jumping off a skyscraper, which we see in the anime version of this fight with Yuta. It's not really in the manga, as I said. Despite that fact, this shot is immediately followed up by Yuta going down the same skyscraper as well, doing the same thing, chasing after him. And this is then met by a montage of characters posed in still shots with red accents around them, which looks pretty cool, but also pretty goofy at the same time. Firstly, we start off with Yuki. We see her doing a similar pose to that we see in like her Kenjaku fight, but nothing one for one from what I can tell. Panda doing an epic high kick, Choso aura farming as he charges up a Hellzone grenade. Then we see Maki pre-awakening as she's about to fight her father Ogi. In the manga, we don't really see any poses like this. This is like an anime only shot, and it looks kind of weird in my opinion, because the shot makes Keel / Dragonbone, like the sword in her hands, the shot makes the sword look kind of very small and looks just like a knife, even just like a kitchen knife. Maybe this is god level order foreshadowing to the fact that she won't be the person to kill Naoya, her mother will, with a kitchen knife. Maybe it's that deep, or maybe it's just some off-model sword for a cool shot. But then we get Megumi in his pose for his domain expansion, you know, Chimera Shadow Garden, of course. He really uses it once in this entire arc, due to him only really having his fight with Reggie and Reggie's goons, which is a shame, but still a cool pose. And then we get Yuta in a pose that looks like something Anakin Skywalker would do. Some people say this pose specifically is reminiscent to what he says as he's about to fight Kurorushi. I see it, but it's a slightly different pose, but I can see why people say that. But the Yuta shot is then followed up with Yuji being dead-eyed, about to hit something. Yet again, this isn't a reference to it, but it looks relatively similar to the card art for Blue Yuji and Phantom Parade. I know they're obviously not referencing each other, but it's just kind of a cool thing to compare the two. As I say, it might seem like I'm going through these montages super fast, and that's because this OP is filled with montages that are on screen for only a handful of frames. So we get a ton of cool visuals in a really short time. Like, as of right now, I am 1,400 words deep in the script and 30 seconds into the OP. Like, they crammed a lot of stuff here. So the next montage we get is all POV shots. We are looking through our character's eyes, and it starts with this wholesome family dinner we see in both the Shibuya fight and the Kenjaku fight. All the death paintings alongside Yuji from Choso's POV. It's nice and it's wholesome, but it's followed up with Megumi standing over Sumiki's unconscious body. Seeing his shadow on her is pretty depressing, I'm not gonna lie. But it's also a nice juxtaposition of wholesome sibling interactions followed by depressing sibling interactions. But then we see the world from baby Panda's POV as he looks up at Yaga from his crib. Yet again, nice and wholesome. But we then get a shot from what appears to be the Zenin household, and from what I assume is Maki's point of view. We see someone in the distance kind of hiding in the shadows. This person more than likely being Mai, being pissed after Maki leaves the clan that we saw in season 1. And I'll probably put the manga panel on screen. I don't remember which specific chapter it was. We then get this absolutely diabolical shot. Right, this is, I'll probably put this one in the thumbnail or make it a desktop because this looks peak, right? Yuji looking at his own reflection in the mirror just to see Sukuna looking back at him. His hands covered in blood, all the while Sukuna smiles. Brother, this is a peak visual. The art here is great. Just look at this dude smile. Oh, this art piece is just phenomenal. I love that. It just also feeds into the motif that we see, not just in the OP, but also in the anime, of Yuji's hands being bloodied and him just trying to wash them clean, which he can never seem to do. But This montage specifically finishes as we see Yuki observing the Culling Game's barrier in the distance. As the shot pans up, we both see how big her ass is, as well as the barrier in front of her. The eclipse we saw at the start begins to break away as the title card appears. We see destroyed buildings appear behind it, and then a missile appears, a nuke, more than likely calling to the US, wondering what to do about sorcerers. Then we smash cut to a fashion pose-up of the main crew for the first couple episodes. Tengen as the lead in the middle, Yuji in his execution outfit to her left, followed by Yuta and Maki pre-awakening, and then to Tengen's right, we have Yuki in her biker gear, which is weird because we have seen her in this outfit a handful of times, but I don't think in this arc. I think we see her wear her biker stuff during her flashback with Toro, as well as the flashback to Geto in the hidden inventory, but it's still kind of a cool choice. But then we see Megumi with his default outfit with literally 0 outfit changes, which is kind of boring, and then we see Choso moodily staring off into the distance next to him. The shot transitions to give us a close-up of Tengen, about to give us 2 whole chapters of expository dialogue, but the shot changes to reveal that Kenjaku was watching the whole time. And it's further pushed visually that Kenjaku is this mastermind of the Culling Games, as he literally puts the barrier down himself in this giant form, pushing this visual theme of Kenjaku being in control, which I think is really cool. This is sick. All the Kenjaku visuals in this are peak. We then get a callback to the visual from the start of Kenjaku's eye, looking into the eclipse, looking at Yuji and everyone in the Culling Games, as we see him looking straight into the barrier he just placed down. He's watching everyone, everywhere. Like, they really made Kenjaku feel more imposing in this OP than he does in the actual manga series, which is pretty sick. Ow, I just whacked the mic. Maki then hits the catwalk in this weird shot and walks towards the camera with flashing lights appearing all around her, now fully awakened, as she doesn't have her eye patch or glasses here. Well, not fully awakened like she is in the second Naoya fight with Daido and Mio, but you know what I mean. We get another shot of the barrier, just showing off how imposing it actually is from the outside looking in as a bird goes in. Then we get a shot of Yuji dumbfounded, looking as if he's floating underwater. Post-execution, as he's in his school uniform again. Maybe this shot is perhaps referencing Higuruma, asking about all the deaths in Shibuya, asking if he's guilty. Who knows? But this is when the OP takes a cliff dive into the unorthodox in regards to stylistic choices. We see a herd of pandas running through the wild, the art style looking almost like a children's picture book. The next shot is found footage-esque, showing us Maki and Mai running through the fields of reeds. Obviously, the field of reeds in most cultures connotates death, which makes sense as Mai is dead as hell at this point. The next shot is pretty on the nose, but still looks really creepy as hell, okay? Showing us Kenjaku in Kaori Itadori's body, seemingly holding their child. The scene sounds innocent when spoken, but just looking at it is very unsettling. The way Kenjaku is drawn here is deeply unnerving. I mean, he does look like a corpse, which makes sense, holding this chubby-cheeked little baby Yuji in his decrepit, creepy hands. I mean, since this image itself is based off a painting literally called Dead Mother, it does make sense why Kenjaku looks so creepy here. But this is then followed with some more wholesome stuff again, showing us a cute portrayal of baby Maki and Mai, which is nice. Another artistic reference, specifically to a painting called Two Sleeping Children, followed by a nice little photo of Yaga with his chud panda son. They're smiling and there's flowers behind them, and it's just nice and wholesome. I like all the Yaga and Panda stuff. It makes me feel like they're going to extend it a little bit, which I hope they do. Then we get another seemingly wholesome shot, which is in turn linked to the previous, as it involves Yaga. Now, for those who don't remember, these two characters are Takeru and Kusakabe's sister. This picture is nice and everything, but the context of it is when we see Kusakabe's sister for the first time and only time, Takeru is already dead, the child in this picture. And as a result, the child's mother, Kusakabe's sister, is in a catatonic state. So Kusakabe asks Yaga to pseudo-revive Takeru through his cursed corpse technique. But the boy's soul isn't actually revived or anything. It's just kind of his personality with none of the memories. So this image is the only time actually seen Kusakabe's, as of right now, unnamed sister happy with her child before he dies, which is pretty grim. The next shot is what appears to be Kenjaku, given the robes and long strands of hair, depicted in a similar style to, the Scream. Of all the artistic references, I feel like this is the one everyone got. It's the Scream, just look at it. He's, screaming. He has bags under his eyes, the hair is everywhere, and especially his eyes are covered with this big censorship bar. Whilst Kenjaku has been keeping his eye on everything throughout the course of this OP, when he can't see anything, he's freaking out. Maybe it's a reference to his fight with Yuki, when Kenjaku himself is really annoyed that he knows nothing about Yuki's actual curse technique or abilities. So you remove his ability to see everything and be this little spectator, and he gets pissed off. Makes sense. Then we get Takaba dancing. Now, it would make sense for the previous shot to be Kenjaku due to the connection between him and Takaba, but the fact that he's doing star jumps means that his balls are probably falling out as he's doing it, because that just happens to happen with Takaba, given what he wears. But we then get this shot of Naoya from his fight with Maki. We can obviously tell it's from this specific fight and not the Choso fight due to the background being more mountainous, obviously, right? We then get a shot of Maki and Mai side by side in front of what appears to be either Juzo Kamiya's workshop or at least the Zenin weapon storage, right? Which is where Mai dies and Maki is reborn, so to speak. Still, don't know why did they take Mai's shoes off here? I don't understand. Okay, it's even weirder that they're off here. Like, Gege has a feet thing. It's kind of obvious when you just go through the manga with that in mind. But even in the opening is just strange. That's devious. We then get this really cool visual representing the two paths taken by Yuji and Megumi in the Culling Games, as two characters state to Yuji and Megumi that Higuruma is in their respective district. Remy obviously luring Megumi away towards Reggie and his goons, and Amai actually taking Yuji to Higuruma. And this makes even more sense when the shot is followed by the aftermath of Higuruma's actions. Judge is dead after he uses his CT in court, which is yet again followed by more wholesome Takaba exercising, followed by Yuji raising his hand as he does at the start of the season and at the end of the last. And then we get a quick couple frames of what appears to be convergence happening. And I've seen a couple people say this is a reference to Yuji learning piercing blood because of, what he did in the Sukuna fight. But to be honest, I think it's more of just like a visual to represent Choso and the holes he puts through a bunch of the curses when Yuji does clap his hands. But you can still think it's a Shinjuku Showdown reference. I won't tell you otherwise. It's up for interpretation, okay? Then we get more Takaba hype moments, and I was right, his balls are nearly falling out, but now we have Megumi being hype alongside Takaba and Yuji, which is goated. Now this next shot is both a neat historical reference as well as a cool reference to a fight. So we see Yuta about to give Kurorushi mouth to mouth. Now you may notice that this shot is hyper stylized, and that's simply because it's a reference to an old famous oil painting called The Kiss. And I will say I love / hate how Kurorushi looks here. It looks so weird because he looks both human in his facial expression, but unhuman with his big ass eyes on his head. And I just think it's a neat little nod to the fans and the readers, so to speak, because everyone used to say that Yuta kissed Kurorushi to death, and I think this is a pretty cool representation to kind of call to that. We get another flash to the missile from earlier about to drop, which is funny due to how quickly the American plotline is dropped, followed by Yaga taking off his jacket for his fight with Gakuganji, which Gakuganji nearly lost, by the way, with a team of ninjas, and Yaga couldn't use his curse technique, which is insane, by the way. Then we see Yuta putting on his ring to call Rika, which is strangely enough followed by Ranta, of all people, who looks tweaked the out in this shot. It is cool to see a character who literally, has a handful of panels to characterize them, get some spotlight. But at the same time, did you have to make him look like he is tweaking this hard? We then see Gakuganji. He does a little riff as he preps to fight Yaga, followed by Choso prepping piercing blood, which could literally be from any one of Choso's fights since he is a blood merchant, which is fair enough. But then we get this clean ass shot of Higuruma with the executioner's sword, which is a pretty close pose to what is used in the manga when he first summons it. It just looks so good here. This is a peak shot here. This looks phenomenal. Then we see Yuji prepping a punch again because that's just what he does, so that's fair enough. And then we get the entire, the best shot in the entire OP, right here. Kusakabe doing a simple domain. I love this, but for real, it makes zero sense, right? Kusakabe will show up in a single episode involving his sister, right? But it's a flashback with Yaga, and it has zero fighting. So I have literally zero idea why they gave him this shot. I love it, don't get me wrong. Just look at my profile. I love Kusakabe, top 1 character, but he isn't in the Culling Games, really. So I have no idea why he's here. Maybe they'll extend the flashback or something in a really cool way. That's why they, have him here. But if they don't, I deadass do not know why he is here. I mean, granted, they gave Ranta his own shot, so fair enough. But still, very, very weird choice from them. We then get Reggie about to, throw a receipt. Cool. Followed by Megumi about to pop his domain. Panda trying to act intimidating like he does in the Fight Club, I guess. But he, is still just a panda, so it's not exactly spooky when he's bright lime green. We then see Maki prepping her pose when she tries to give Naoya an innocent little hug, followed by Jinichi, who has surprisingly luscious locks here, looking like a prime Netero or a dead ringer for Beyond Netero, which is pretty cool. Then we get a shot of Akari, which makes him look really short, which is kind of funny, right? He looks kind of like Milhouse in all like the future episodes of The Simpsons, where he's like a manlet, but he's like beckoning someone to come fight him, which is a pretty common thing for Hikari to do, which is pretty neat. We then of course get Kirara with what appears to be a star on their head, referencing, you know, the curse technique with the Southern Cross star constellation, followed by Yuki with Garuda floating around her, just like in the Kenjaku fight. We get like 2 frames of Ogi, which is funny because he stands there and does nothing. Like, Junichi got double that, and he looks 10 times better, and Ogi gets nothing, which is funny as hell. But then we see Naoya in the distance, all for him to use projection sorcery and transition the shot, which I think is a really creative way to just go to the next scene, it's so, this is peak, dude, this is peak. They genuinely, this OP is peak. It is phenomenal, dude, it's great. When Naoya uses projection sorcery, the screen flashes blue, as we see someone shooting a laser beam, which is obviously a reference to the deadlock in Sendai colony, and of course Ryu firing granite blasts. But then we see the battleground for Maki and Naoya's first fight. Then we see Hikari's whole Fight Club gang. Like, they gave some of these characters full-on designs, but they don't have like names, they're all just random fodder. Like, don't worry about these guys, they are not important. They might like look kind of cool around Hikari, but you will never find out who these guys are. We then see a pile of burning books, and upon first inspection, I didn't know what this was referencing. I thought maybe it was a reference to Yuki's notes, but no, these are all Japanese law books. Obviously, this shot here is then in turn referencing Higuruma's growing lack of faith in the law, and his philosophy towards the Culling Games, which I think is a really creative shot. But then we get an abrupt switch up, referencing the coloured page showing Maki and Mai in the pseudo afterlife. The shot itself we see shows the cloudy beach the two were on in this coloured page. Then Kirara sparkles onto the screen, and as the shot pulls out, we get a visual of planets and celestial bodies surrounding them. Of course, in reference to Kirara's curse technique. Higuruma then appears in front of a courthouse as it explodes, whilst he holds a sunflower in front of his face as it burns. Of course, referencing his volume cover in a really cool way, adding onto this artwork by making it more bombastic and over the top. It's pretty sick. It's like if you asked Fujimoto to animate this cover. It's great, I love it. Then we get like this family photo of the entire Zenin clan, or at least all its male members show up in this celebratory photo. Now, this is really intriguing to me, as this photo is the only time we've ever seen, or will ever see, Naoya and Naobito interact, which is strange because the image itself looks wholesome, they look chill together, but with the added context of Naoya's reaction to Naobito's death, it suggests a much more intriguing character dynamic between the two than what was originally thought, which I think is a shame because now I'm very curious about how the two's relationship was, and now we'll never get to see that. Obviously, Ranta, Junichi, Ogi, the hair, you know, the Kukuru all here, but who cares about them? They're all fodder. Who cares? Yuki then appears as she's backlit. We see her raise her hand into the air. But what is important is the next shot that kind of gives us almost mood boards for each member of the Sendai colony. Kurorushi, Ryu, Uro, Druve for some reason, and of course Yuta. Each mood board giving little snippets into backstories or motifs or stuff that just happens during the Sendai colony fight. And then we get into this anime intro-esque shot. Yes, I know this is an anime intro, but you know what I mean, right? Like, this almost Power Rangers-esque shot of Reggie with all of his cronies is pretty cool. But I'm not gonna lie though, Hazanoki looks kind of weird to me here. I can't put my finger on why. Everyone else looks fine enough, but my boy Hazanoki looks off. We then get a shot of all the ninjas from the Zenin clan that Maki kills in like 5 pages, followed by the high-ranking members of the Zenin clan with some Power Ranger smoke behind them. The hair, all of which Maki will kill in 4 pages. Then Takaba sticks his ass out at the camera. I don't know what he says here. This is probably mad funny in Japanese, but I have no clue. More shots of the ninjas from the Zenin, aka the Kokuro unit. Then we see these 2 jobbers, Hanyu and Haba. They fight Yuji and both get one-tapped. I mean, she gets hit with a rock and he gets his spine rearranged. Not much to say about these guys, they're fodder. And now for one of the other top 5 shots of the OP here, as we see the aftermath of the death of Kusakabe's nephew, Takeru. As I said previously, after the death of Takeru, it left his mother, Kusakabe's sister, in a deep depression. And this shot is of the flashback we get with Yaga and Kusakabe as Kusakabe's sister meets the new cast corpse version of her son. And it's pretty much 1-for-1 with the manga, which is pretty nice. We then see Maki in the Outlast 2 hallway. I mean, it makes sense since she will be increasing her kill count by an obscene amount. So this is probably the amount of blood she is going to spill in like a single episode. Makes sense. We then get another montage to finish off. So I'm going to go a bit quicker since I'm already 4,000 words deep at this point. So, okay, here we go. We see Mai floating down the river, which is clearly a reference to a painting or something I can't remember specifically. Please tell me down below because it's annoying me. We see Kirara and Hikari looking happy. Not much to say here. It's just a nice shot. Then we see the grenade blast that Yuta throws into the sky and will come down and smack Ryu in the face, followed by the bomb from earlier still falling. Takaba appears to be seemingly doing a bit related to his Wi-Fi joke from his appearance in the Reggie fight, which is pretty cool, followed by a quick shot of the prison realm. Then a bunch of bleach hell butterflies, followed by Yuji's hands still being covered in blood, highlighting his guilt from Shibuya, which is a common theme throughout this arc whenever he's on panel, or I guess on screen now, since the anime is just coming out. And they are making it much more blatant by literally having his hands stained with blood in the latest episodes. After this shot of Yuji, we see a bunch of spinning cogs, yet again referencing Yuji stuff, referencing his conversation with Hikari, as well as how he views himself as a sorcerer, a cog, you know, to be used. He is a sorcerer. He will do his duty. Then we see the small hideout where everyone meets up after Yuji's quote-unquote execution from Yuta. Then the bomb finally drops on the city, revealing Kenjaku laughing at the audience because of how stupid the American soldier stuff is. Oh, Lord have mercy. Overall, this intro aims to show off as much as possible through both straightforward and avant-garde and experimental visuals. It straight up shows the audience events that will happen throughout this season, but in such a disjointed and stylized way. Without the proper knowledge, it just looks like cool visuals to you, if you are unaware, which is what I think OPs for anime should try to do. We see every member of the cast here represented in one way or another. Like, I think all characters, except for some of Reggie's goons, get at least 2 shots. Like, Ranta showed up more than once, for Christ's sake. Like, I think he got 3 separate shots, which is insane. Like, this OP is super fast-paced, and it shows you everything, but in very vague ways, which I think is perfect. This is a fantastic OP with great art, music, and is a solid intro into the next season of Jujutsu Kaisen. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, and subscribe. And toodles my doodles, hope you see you in the next one. Peace.